environment, addressing both traditional and emerging challenges, while ensuring that progress remains meaningful, inclusive, and future-ready. Together, reflects what defines ASEAN: our unity and diversity, our shared purpose, and our commitment to collective progress. Next slide. Our visual identity for ASEAN 2026 captures this essence. The rice stalk symbolizes nourishment and abundance, our region's shared pursuit of food security, with each grain representing a member state, with the 11th marking Timor-Leste's entry into the community just during the last ASEAN summit. The wave represents maritime cooperation and the waters that connect the ASEAN member states. The boat, inspired by the traditional Filipino balanay, embodies our shared voyage, many nations moving forward together aboard a single vessel. The balanay is also the root word of the Filipino barangay, which is the smallest government unit of the Philippines. The weave in the middle of the boat reflects our interconnectedness, each thread unique yet essential in forming a vibrant tapestry of ASEAN unity. Next slide. Okay, the Philippines' vision for ASEAN 2026. As chair of ASEAN in 2026, the Philippines will advance three overarching priorities: the three P's, peace and security anchors, championing peace. Next slide, please. Championing peace and stability through dialogue, adherence to international law, and enhanced cooperation on non-traditional security threats. Prosperity corridors, building systematic connections towards a shared prosperity through economic integration, digital transformation, and inclusive sustainable development that benefits all ASEAN peoples. And people empowerment, empowering ASEAN's people by fostering social inclusion, protecting vulnerable groups, and promoting a sense of shared identity and community. These pillars guide our aspiration for a rules-based, innovative, and people-centered ASEAN that is responsive to today's challenges and resilient in the face of tomorrow's uncertainties. Next slide, please. Back one slide, please. Yeah. Peace and security anchors. Our first pillar focuses on strengthening ASEAN's role as a community of peace and stability. We will reinforce peace and security through norms, dialogue, and adherence to international law, enhance resilience against emerging threats, including cyber attacks, disinformation, and non-traditional security issues, and promote maritime cooperation to safeguard the seas that connect and sustain our nations. We will also deepen collaboration on climate security and disaster preparedness. At a time when global tensions and transnational risks are on the rise, ASEAN must continue to serve as a stabilizing force, a region that upholds peace and mutual respect and cooperation. Next slide. I will speak a little bit more on this. These are the prosperity corridors. The second pillar, the prosperity corridors, envisions an ASEAN that is economically dynamic, connected, and sustainable. These corridors are the arteries of shared progress, linking our economies, industries, and communities across borders. Under this pillar, the Philippines will prioritize 5 strategic thrusts. Strengthening trade and investment linkages. On track to become the world's 4th largest economy, we must ensure that trade and investment remain open, stable, reliable, and sustainable. We will work to enhance strategic trade management, strengthen energy interconnectivity, and advance regional cooperation in semiconductors and critical minerals. These are key industries in ASEAN that are shaping the global economy. Accelerating digital transformation, promoting an inclusive and open digital economy that empowers every ASEAN citizen, particularly MSMEs. Digital technologies are shaping the way we live, work, and do business. By improving ASEAN's digital frameworks, we can create an open, secure, and inclusive digital environment that empowers every citizen. Next year, we're looking forward also to the conclusion of the ASEAN Digital Economy Framework Agreement, which falls under this trust. Leveraging creative economy and innovation. Across Southeast Asia, creativity fuels industries from design and digital media to fashion and the arts. By promoting policies that nurture this sector, we can unlock new jobs, ideas, and collaborations across our regions, keeping ASEAN's economies resilient, adaptable, and its people inspired. We believe that the creative industry is a key driver for trade and tourism and one of the assets of the Philippines. Advancing sustainable and inclusive economies. We must ensure that progress remains environmentally responsible and socially equitable. Economic progress must go hand in hand with environmental security and social inclusion. The Philippines will push for initiatives that encourage green investment, sustainable finance, and plan a smart industry so that future generations can inherit not just a richer region, but also a healthier planet. Integrating ASEAN's MSME development agenda. MSMEs make up or are the backbone of the ASEAN economies and employ the majority of our workforce. The Philippines will champion initiatives that will help MSMEs gain better access to finance, technology, and regional value chains so that no one is left behind in ASEAN's journey towards prosperity. Through these priorities, we aim to make the ASEAN Economic Community a living framework, one that delivers tangible outcomes for our people. On people empowerment, next slide please. The third pillar, people empowerment, places our citizens at the heart of ASEAN's future. This means empowering families and communities, advancing inclusive development, especially for women and vulnerable groups, and encouraging youth innovation and social entrepreneurship, and promoting a food-secure, climate-smart ASEAN for the next generation. Because genuine prosperity is not measured only by numbers, but by opportunity, dignity, and hope. The Philippine chairmanship arrives at a crucial juncture for ASEAN as we closely place key cross-cutting issues in the region, namely on peace and security, maritime stability, climate change, and emerging technologies. You can count on the Philippines' steadfast commitment to navigate the future with unwavering confidence in ASEAN and our community. In this regard, we build upon ASEAN's legacy of consultation, consensus building, and mutual respect. We will continue to forge catalyzing and transforming initiatives that will provide stability to our community. And we will champion peace and security, promote shared prosperity, and foster people empowerment in the ASEAN community. Excellencies, distinguished guests and friends, building upon the successful chairship of previous ASEAN chairs, the Philippines will take this opportunity to introduce to the world how we will steer the future of the region and beyond, collectively by galvanizing community building efforts during our chairship. Our goal is not to diverge from the past chairmanships of ASEAN, but to build upon the collective work of ASEAN, most importantly within its foundational pillars over the decades since its inception. We hope to achieve this in cooperation with the ASEAN Secretariat, ASEAN member states, and our external partners like the Republic. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you. Before we go to the reaction from our panelists, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Ambassador of Vietnam to the Philippines, His Excellency Ambassador Lai Tai-ping.
Thank you very much, Sir, for highlighting the key priorities of Philippine chairmanship of ASEAN next year, which are to reiterate peace and security anchors, prosperity corridors, and people empowerment. And I like how you, towards the end, emphasize that it's important to build on what's already been started and contributed by previous chairmanship. And I'd like to start with that as a question for our panelists. So how do we build on the previous chairmanship experiences? Malaysia just turned over the chairmanship to the Philippines. The symbolic cable was given to the President Marcos recently in the ASEAN Summit. To what extent are the key priorities of the Philippines right now, coming into the leadership of the organization? To what extent are these key priorities mentioned continuing and strengthening the past contributions of the past ASEAN chairs? And what is new and future looking about these agendas set by the Philippines? And the second question has to do with inclusive growth, because one of the key priorities is the prosperity corridors. And we mentioned how it's important right now to intensify. That was also the theme of the Malaysian chairmanship last year with inclusivity and sustainability. So my question here has to do with how do we further integrate not only the minorities, those at the peripheries, minority or marginalized populations in various segments of societies in the region of ASEAN, but the challenges that have to do with the political instabilities and underdevelopment still of other members of ASEAN, notably Cambodia and Myanmar, which is still ruled by the military junta at the moment. And of course, the recent integration or inclusion of Timor-Leste as the newest member of ASEAN. And then the third is, of the three priorities, where should the Philippines start first? No, which among the three priorities should be given utmost and immediate action, concrete course of action has already been outlined, I think, by Mr. Olaguer, but we'd like to know, given the very tense political climate that we're dealing with, and of course, the anxieties brought about the tariff regulations, no, especially by the Trump administration. And of course, this is a global anxiety that's not only specific to ASEAN, but I think that ASEAN also plays a great role in kind of protecting or insulating the region against these anxieties. So I'd like to start with those three questions first, and each of the panelists can start responding to any of those questions.
So thank you very much. A very good morning to all. And I'd like to answer the first question, the Philippines chairmanship priorities. So first, although Manila has repeatedly emphasized its desire to conclude the COC, the Code of Conduct, during its chairmanship next year, frankly speaking, I remain cautious. We all know that the obstacles are not only between ASEAN and China, but also within ASEAN member states. So moreover, China has constantly preferred a non-legally binding COC, right? And given that we already did DOC in 2002, and considering that ASEAN and China have spent more than 10 years to preparing this COC, the adoption of another non-binding document would raise serious questions about its added value. And in other words, resolving the South China Sea issue within ASEAN's current framework remains challenging, in my opinion. So for the Philippines, pushing the COC to conclusion may require enormous diplomatic energy, right, with uncertain returns. So for these reasons, I believe that Philippines could make greater and more meaningful progress by concentrating on non-traditional security issues, as mentioned, as one of the main priorities under the political security pillar. And a very urgent example is the proliferation of the SPAM centers across the region. These centers are not limited to the Mekong countries, but also in Philippines. The fact that ASEAN leaders have now raised this issue at the summit level last month is timely and crucial, and Manila is in a good position to sustain this momentum next year. And in contrast to this political security pillar, I believe that ASEAN's economic cooperation has been moving more dynamically. For example, this year marked is the first in-person RCEP summit since the agreement came into force, and ASEAN created the new Geo-Economics Task Force and also institutionalized the joint meeting of ASEAN Foreign and Economic Ministers. And these developments significantly strengthen ASEAN's ability to manage economic security risk, and it will be crucial for Philippines to carry these trajectories. And ASEAN cooperation is more deepening within the social-cultural community pillar as well. This year saw notable progress in higher education collaboration, and also discussions on combating disinformation, misinformation, and cybercrime. So this is especially fundamental, I think, because after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Russia and China have intensified coordinated information operations, and ASEAN has not been immune to their influence. At the same time, Trump 2.0 administration has significantly reduced the roles of USAID and the National Endowment for Democracy and Voice of America and Radio Free Asia, so leaving the region even more exposed to authoritarian propaganda. So against this backdrop, ASEAN cooperation on media literacy and information resilience is no longer optional but essential. So this is an area where Manila can deliver concrete progress. And historically, the Philippines has played a constructive role in expanding ASEAN's normative framework. Not only regarding the South China Sea, but also Manila supported the establishment of ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights, AICHA, together with Indonesia and Thailand, and also Philippines contributed to the ASEAN Human Rights Declaration that was adopted in 2012. And it has been actively in advancing human issue and vulnerable people's rights. For example, Philippines participated the development of ASEAN Regional Action Plan on Human Peace and Security. So given this track record, I hope the Philippines will continue its principled democracy next year, particularly regarding Myanmar. Among ASEAN members, I think the Philippines is arguably the most capable and willing to press the 5PC implementation and to incorporate civilian protection principles into ASEAN discussions. Similarly, when it comes to the Thailand-Cambodia border dispute, the Philippines is one of the few countries with the credibility to serve as an honest broker. So its long experience with the Mindanao peace process, especially in mediation techniques and trust building, could be asset for regional conflict management. So I was in Washington last week and I met think tank people, and they also surprised Trump's unexpected participation at the ASEAN summit in Kuala Lumpur, and it's mostly driven by his desire to mediate the Thai-Cambodian dispute. But as recent news already shown that the ceasefire mediated by President Trump did not fundamentally address the underlying territorial issues which are deeply rooted in historical narratives and colonial legacy. So this is why the agreement remains fragile. So this reinforces the point that ASEAN-led sustainable conflict resolutions remain indispensable, and this is where the Philippines can contribute. And finally, the Philippines is perhaps the ASEAN member with the strongest cultural and religious connection with Timor-Leste. So as the youngest member moves toward full integration, Philippines can play an important role in ensuring its smooth adaptation and in strengthening ASEAN's internal cohesion. So, while expecting around the COC will continue to attract public attention, the Philippines is more likely to deliver concrete achievement in non-traditional security ability and regional long development. And this is areas that I think the Philippines can really show the strengths. Yeah, so I look forward to seeing Manila achieving these goals. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Kim.
Thank you very much for those questions. Perhaps what I would like to talk about is since this is a forum that is organized together with South Korea, we would want to maximize the connectivity and the connection that we have formed with South Korea, and look at avenues where they can contribute, especially when we have started with the hosting in 2026. So I think one of the things that we can rely on with South Korea is forging a partnership that would really leverage the technological leadership and look at the investment capacity of South Korea alongside with our strategic position that we have presented earlier. So looking at, again, ensuring shared prosperity, ensuring that the benefits would reach all segments of society, especially those in the regions outside of Luzon, most especially, and also focusing on the accelerating growth that Mindanao is currently experiencing. We also want to look at building environmental sustainability and economic diversification, especially since the Philippines is the economic structure of the Philippines, especially in terms of manufacturing and exports, is really concentrated on one or two items of exports. So it's really highly concentrated. And even in terms of services, the export of the Philippines is really known for the IT/BPM sector, but there are avenues and sectors of growth. So what we want to really look at is to build more avenues of avenues for diversification, economic diversification, and manufacturing growth. And also related to that would be to look at environmental sustainability and learn from the experiences of the other ASEAN countries in terms of managing the risks of and the environment. And then finally, what we would want to advance, especially during our hosting and looking at South Korea to cooperate with us in terms of building rules-based partnerships. We have seen through the Trump administration's imposition of tariffs that large economies are now able to just set aside agreements that have been formed and negotiated for a long time, and using the rules that are setting aside the rules that have been negotiated for a long time. But this is something that increases the risk and uncertainty in the region. And so for the ASEAN, what we would want is really to emphasize and to promote the trade and the relationships that we form with our partner countries, especially with the ASEAN pluses. The ASEAN +1 or the ASEAN +3 and the ASEAN +6 in those in RCEP partner countries, is that we are advocating and pursuing a rules-based trading regime. So with this background, I really would want to emphasize 8 sector-specific strategies and outcomes for the Philippines, no? And this would be related very specifically to the ASEAN Economic Community pillar, focusing more on this sector that, since PIDS, I'm an economist, so we want to look at the areas for economic development. So 8 sector-specific outcomes and strategies for the Philippines would first look at advanced technology and innovation. And the goal is really to transform the Philippines. It's really to promote the Philippines to our ASEAN partners as a premier regional hub for technology development, digital services, and creating high-value employment opportunities. So what we would want to, because of course the focus now is the Philippines and the economic situation now in the country, what we would want is to highlight that there are areas for the Philippines for investment and for an expansion for advanced technology utilization. We have seen how Korea has currently invested in precision manufacturing in a number of areas in the Philippines, and we would want to do is to expand Korea's investment in advanced technology and creating integrated supply chains serving domestic, not just the domestic markets, the manufacturers in the different PEZA zones in the Philippines, but also the other regions, servicing all the other regional markets in ASEAN. And this is very important because what we have seen in the data is that intra-ASEAN trade is actually very low. So what we would want is to, the topic is connectivity. So this is another way of enhancing connectivity across industries. So expanding that the avenues for investment is very important. In terms of the topic related to security, I agree with pursuing non-traditional forms of security. So looking at food security and environmental security, environmental sustainability. So through lessons and participation of the Korean smart farming technologies that we have seen being implemented and being done in the Philippines, what we can do is to benchmark this and leverage this to revolutionize Philippine agriculture and to ensure food security while creating export opportunities. So what we can do is we can highlight during the Philippine hosting these existing technologies that are being done and implemented here in the Philippines and look at avenues for promoting food security within the region through the cooperation of Korea and the Philippines in these smart technologies. Another would be, as I mentioned, environmental sustainability. The Philippines is also, we have experienced the past few weeks, a area of environmental uncertainty and climate change uncertainty. And climate change risks. So what we can do is the Philippines can position itself as a regional leader that has learned lessons on climate change security and environmental security, and to look at areas for ensuring security in the critical industries, in the critical sectors such as energy, logistics, and telecommunications. So areas that are very important even during the time of a disaster. So what we can do as a cooperation with South Korea is to look at renewable energy production and environmental technologies to achieve a stronger backbone of these critical industries. And maybe just last sector to look at is human capital development. What we would want is to create world-class technical education systems following South Korea's experience in the development of its students, to also produce globally competitive professionals, supporting not just the Philippine economy, but also looking at how we can contribute to the growth of the other economies in the region through our world-class students and world-class labor force. That would be all.
Okay, so it's my turn. Anyway, so maybe building on the discussions presented by my co-panelists, I agree actually with them, especially with regards to the focus that the Philippines can take in this ASEAN championship, especially focusing not only on the people-to-people relations, but especially because when we talk about security, it's not just about traditional security, but when we talk about NPS, non-traditional security, this is also including human security. And of course, as what Dr. Kimball mentioned, of course, in terms of resilience, how do we build on resilience? So the Philippines is actually considered the most at-risk country in the world. We have been that in the past few years, and how can we use that? Because based on our research, the Philippines and other ASEAN countries, in fact, even though we have been experiencing a lot of disasters for so many years. We're supposed to be very good already in managing disasters. But look at our regulations, our policies on disasters. There's so many things that we can work on. And I think the ASEAN can work on that one. As under the Philippines leadership, we can work on that one, especially in terms of having a more resilient or more responsive disaster reduction, risk reduction management plans and policies in the ASEAN countries. So that's one. And another thing is that in terms of people-to-people relations, especially within the ASEAN, one of the things that is common within the ASEAN region is the concept of mobility. So especially because of a lot of people are now moving in different places, especially in the ASEAN region, we can look at the three issues of mobility. First is the issue of students. We have a lot of students moving in different countries in the Philippines. And also aside from ASEAN students going to Korea, of course, if we look at the number of students going to Korea, I think what the Philippines and Korea can work on in this part is that in terms of student mobility, we can have more of a standardized procedure and pre-departure briefings in terms of our students who are going to ASEAN. We can also look at in terms of other regulations, like for example, even grievance, even the experiences of students who go to Korea. And also, aside from that, even Korean students coming in the Philippines, we can also look into that. And also in other ASEAN countries, because we have a lot of this movement of students. And also, in terms of the scholarships, we have seen an increase in the number of slots available for ASEAN students. But we also think that it can be more helpful in terms of adding more in terms of digital and AI skills and that kind of scholarships, because we can learn a lot of that from Korea. So aside from that, we can also look into in the case of multicultural families. Of course, in the case of people relations, we have a lot of ASEAN multicultural families, of course, especially in South Korea. So we can maybe include cooperation with local governments. So we can use this, especially the support and enforcement of such mechanisms to protect our multicultural families in terms of this. Another thing is I think some of my co-panelists already mentioned with regards to workers from ASEAN, no? So maybe in terms of protection of our workers, maybe we can have a little bit of standardization in terms of recruiters, especially within the ASEAN and those who are going outside of ASEAN, especially to South Korea. So standardization of contracts, maybe we can have that, or monitoring. And I think also this can also help because if you have, I'm sure everybody already is aware of the fact that within the ASEAN we have problems in terms of scams, scam hubs. And there were cases of South Korean students who were even scammed. They thought there would be job opportunities in ASEAN, and then they found out it's actually a scam. And of course, and so how can we protect this kind of cases? So that's also an issue in terms of the ASEAN, which we can work on. Another, I think also was mentioned, not just in the discussion of this morning, but also in the case of creative industry. So of course, the Philippines has been posing itself as one of those countries who wants to improve our creative policies. And based also on our study in benchmarking Philippines and South Korean creative policies and industries, we can really learn a lot. And the ASEAN is a very diverse region in terms of our culture. So we have to go beyond just recognizing that we have different cultures, but how can we strengthen that identity that we have different cultures? So how can we now become ready to export that? How can we strengthen that creative economies within the ASEAN region? I think the DTI cited has been already they have been organizing events in order to improve them, especially increase the capability of our creatives here in the Philippines. They have also been inviting others from different countries. But how can we also strengthen this? This is something that we can also use. especially in the incoming ASEAN chairmanship. And aside from that, since also it was mentioned about the problems with digital technology, AI, even misinformation and all. Because one of my ongoing research is in terms of protection of civil liberties. How can the civil liberties of users and ordinary people using the internet, especially, be protected through our policies? So while also gathering data from our people. So that's something also we can work on in terms of the ASEAN leadership. There. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Hello. I haven't used it. Okay, thank you so much, Professor Gongora. But before I synthesize the inputs from our panelists, I'd like to take one or two questions from the audience. Anybody? Anybody who, it could be a question or a comment. Yes.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Xavier Brown III from the UP Asian Center. So, in terms of trade, I just want to know the export utilization rate under the ASEAN-Korea FTA is low. So, how will the parties to this agreement will overcome? How they will overcome the gaps to the agreement? Most especially that, like what the speaker said or mentioned earlier, since this is very integral to ASEAN integration and to ASEAN supply chains. Thank you.
Let me try to respond to your question. Thank you. That's a very good question. So it looks at what we have formed as ASEAN as a regional group and our partners in the region. So our plus ones, our ASEAN plus one with Korea. And you're right in citing that utilization is quite low for a number of reasons. But for the Philippines, for our chairship, what we can do is we can leverage the existing technologies and companies that and advanced technologies and modernize Philippine manufacturing through Korean advanced technologies and to create integrated supply chains that serve both the domestic and regional markets. So there are a number of ways to do this. Let me just mention 5. So first is looking at the Advanced Mold Technology Center expansion. There is currently a Korean dye and mold industry being supported, and Korean technology through transfer programs, equipment installation, and training can advance this. And this is actually a foundational service. The dye and mold technology is foundational for a number of industries. So having that kind of infrastructure here in the Philippines would help support the Philippines as a hub that can support the other industries in the region. Another would be looking at smart manufacturing. So now there's a lot of technology being integrated into into manufacturing, but the Philippines still is in its in a nascent stage. So what we can do is modernize domestic factories, local factories, to incorporate Internet of Things, 3D printing, other digital technology, and to showcase the lessons and even the technology that Korean smart manufacturing solutions are doing. So again, that's something that would serve as a foundation for intra-ASEAN trade if we can leverage those kinds of technologies in the country and even across ASEAN. The third would be to support more investments financed through the Create More. We leverage the Philippine policies that have been passed to attract more investments. And what the Philippines can do is create a specific manufacturing financing facility under the Create More to support technical assistance and lower the financial constraints and enable smaller manufacturers to adopt advanced technologies to enter global markets. Fourth is looking at precision manufacturing innovation hubs. Joint Korea-Philippine research centers can be established and drive innovation competitiveness across industrial sectors. And finally, to look at critical raw materials processing complex. So we utilize what the Philippines is good at, no? So, or what we have we have a lot of, no? So nickel and cobalt reserves, and then we leverage Korean hydrometallurgy, smelting and purification technologies in order to be able to produce things that would be utilized by other ASEAN member states and our partners. So again, fostering deeper and more integrated supply chain. So these 5 projects could support a deeper integration of supply chain. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
So thank you very much for a very important question. Actually, the Korea and ASEAN signed our FTA in 2006 on goods and followed by on service in 2007 and investment in 2009. So it's time to upgrade our FTA. And the good news is for the last summit between ASEAN and ROK in Kuala Lumpur, the leaders already agreed to start the negotiation for upgrading ASEAN-Korea FTA. So I hope that we can have the renewed FTA in coming years. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. We still have time to take another question, or is it up? Okay, there's this T signal that says time is up. Director Oliveira, do you have some insights? So this session, before I formally close this one, we'd like to highlight how in the key agendas for the Philippine chairmanship of the ASEAN, we have the 3 Ps, but we also emphasize how there's a need for the Philippines to balance, I think, traditional and non-traditional security issues, because cooperation and greater connectivity and inclusivity have to entail, a delicate balance, between these priorities that are, of course, will allow us to maximize the leadership opportunity the following next year, 2026. I was also emphasizing in this session how intra-regional trade needs to be boosted. We have Philippines have the capabilities, trading potential. Also, Dr. Kiba emphasized some of the resources that we already have at hand, and all we have to do is to strengthen this, to leverage on technological and digital resources and services that we have for the benefit of our ASEAN neighbors, but also Korea as a primary investor to stimulate bilateral trade. And at the same time, there's a need to boost intra-mobility, inter-regional mobility. Several populations, students, multicultural families, I'm also interested in that. And of course, the very serious issue, I think intertwining mobility with the fact that we experience a lot of environmental challenges, the displacement of a lot of people because, of course, the inability to resilience has a limit, and that has prevented a lot of people, to have a more stable settlement some areas are prone to flooding and all the disasters on the Philippines being the most vulnerable of all nations at the moment. And so taking advantage of the leadership, the chairmanship of the ASEAN will have to mean enhancing greater cooperation with ASEAN neighbors and how to be more resilient in developing disaster and what's the term? Disaster and resilience reduction networks altogether reduce risks and vulnerabilities caused by climate change. And I was also inspired by the need to boost creative industries in the region. Incidentally, this year marks the 60th anniversary of Philippine-Laos relations. We had an interaction with the Lao ambassador, and he said that in Laos, not a lot of people know about the Philippines. And so it's time for us to promote our cultural products, boost our soft power in the region, allow for cultural heritage exchanges, because there are, in so many ways we are similar with our neighbors, but there are still some distinctive characteristics that we can leverage on through our engagement with the ASEAN. So with that, I'd like to end this session in the interest of time, and thank you very much to our distinguished panelists, also Director Alaguera, for the very stimulating presentation. Thank you so much for your attention.